Yeah, okay, so now, of course, this year, 2025, is the 100th anniversary of the release of the silent film Phantom of the Opera. And I haven't been doing a very good job of celebrating that, considering Phantom of the Opera is like my favorite, my all-time favorite. And I love the book, I love the show. And it broke my heart when they said that they were going to cancel it. And I was just like, no. And and of course I love music, everything. But it's like I did two videos so far, and it's like where's the celebration here? Well, I was working on a couple uh videos and like everything happened. I was hoping to release a video last month. One of them I think I'm just gonna scrap because it's one of those where like the idea was there and then you go back and look at it and it's like no. This is not important. The other one is about Gaston Leroux. And I've become such a fan of that guy. It's like it's one of those things where you don't think to research somebody, and then once you do, you fall down such a rabbit hole, and it's just like, why didn't I do this sooner? So I've been having a blast, but I want to make sure that all the information is there. And so I'm before I get in front of the camera, I should say. And I was hoping to put that out last month, but of course, what happened happened. So, but when I was editing the last video that I put out, which was the Indiana Jones Venice, I was looking at a website that has a bunch of information on video games, classic and current. There's a there's another video game for Phantom of the Opera. However, it did not have a US release, a lot like that Christmas one that I talked about. So we're going to talk about it. Because, and I did find a gameplay for it. I actually had to watch the gameplay to get kind of an understanding of it because the wording in this one place that I was looking was a little confusing as to the gameplay itself. And so I had to watch it for myself and I have kind of more of an understanding of how it's played. And so this was released in the UK. It also had a release in Spain back in 1987. Okay. This is called Erik, Phantom of the Opera. Okay, now I'm going to show a title page. Okay, look at the title page wherever I show it because I don't know how I'm going to do this in editing. But here's the thing. Okay, so the font looks familiar, I'm sure, to a lot of you. Andrew Lloyd Webber's Phantom of the Opera came out in 1986. Okay, and this came out in 87, the next year. Okay, now if you watch the gameplay, which I highly recommend you do, if you watch, they will have the same like shattered look of the wording of Phantom of the Opera, where it's like white and blue and it just has that shattered effect. And they have different colors to it in the video game. But it's, now, again, I couldn't find a lot of information on this, and I think part of that has to do with the title of it itself, especially with the name Eric, because there's like wiki pages everywhere because, he's a monster. So, like the Universal monsters all have. So, I was coming across that. And of course, with Phantom of the Opera, they wanted to show like old Broadway show pages. Yeah, I was just getting I miss when search engines just showed you what you wanted to see. No matter what I would type in, it would show me what I didn't want to see. I get that all the time. Yes, I'm going to be the cranky old lady for right now. But now, so I was curious if this game was slammed with copyright when it was released because when you have a Broadway show, I mean, the fact that Phantom of the Opera played from 1986 to 2003, I think was their last show. That's when they were supposed to shut down. I believe it was February of 2003. I would remember because I really wanted to see it and didn't get to. But you have a show like that, and especially, I think wasn't it 86? I mean, that was like the year that, now again, I was like 4 years old in 86, but that was the year of Amadeus. And of course, Amadeus was originally a Broadway show. So, I mean, you had like theater kids up the ass. I'm sorry, but the 80s were all about theater. It really was. And because it was so blasted everywhere, 80s, the 80s were all about theater and everything. When the 90s came, it was like, we're done. We're exhausted. I kid you not, that's what happened. People were done, and that's why musicals just died. It was like, okay, we'll put them in the animated movies, and we just don't care. Put them in live action movies, and you're a laughing stock. That's why Newsies bombed. Live in denial all you want, Newsies fans, but that's what happened. I was there. And I mean, people were in the 80s, they were all about this stuff. So when you have Andrew Lloyd Webber come out and he does Phantom of the Opera, they're like, yes. So, I mean, I'm curious how they got away. There is no way that they were able to put out this video game and not get slammed with a lawsuit somewhere. But I couldn't find anything about that. So it's just pure speculation on my part. And I mean, again, Phantom of the Opera was brand new, but still, yeah, that wasn't their first, was it? I think Cats was before. And gosh, now I have to look. Heavens to Betsy. I should have looked this up before. Okay, let's look at, yeah, Andrew Lloyd Webber musicals. Um, yeah, he was in the early years. Okay, so in the 60s he was 17. So what was his collaborated with Rice again to write Evita. So in the 70s he had Evita. And then in the 80s, yeah, so okay. Let's look at this real quick. Lloyd Webber premiered Phantom of the Opera in 1986. Wrote the part of Christine. Let's see. Wrote the lyrics. Provided with. It became a hit and is still running in the East. And oh, is it still running? I thought that it ended. The Broadway production closed in, okay, so it closed down in April of 2023. I thought it closed down in February. Okay. So yeah, he's been going he started in like the 70s, maybe even the 60s. So his Broadway shows were going forever, and this was a big hit from, yeah, so to put in your video game the font and even the wording to look the same, there had to be something there. There had to be some kind of legal action there. Or maybe Lloyd Webber didn't care. Maybe he did- Yeah. And to be honest, when I looked up what was it? A lot of tabs here. So the review, there was one review, but it doesn't have it here. But the score that it gave was 60%. So, if it, I think that if the game had done better, maybe. So, anyway, moving on from that. So there's that, but you also see the character with the mask. Okay, so the character with the mask is actually supposed to be this character. Okay, this is actually the first edition of the book. This is what you saw as the first edition of the book when it was first released. I don't have a problem with that. When you dedicate your game to Gaston Leroux's uh, story and you put that in there, that's not a big deal. I mean, um, seems like they did that with the Mary Shelley Frankenstein, which there's like five different Frankenstein, probably more at this point, but in the 80s and 90s, there were like three different ones. The Mary Shelley Frankenstein, as far as I'm concerned, is the better one. So, um, that was like in 94, if I remember correctly. Anyway, so there's that. Now, the story itself, it pretty much follows, because if you remember the other one, the point and click one that I talked about, it starts in current times. You have a murder case, and these are like the descendants of, it kind of does the whole thing, and then it does kind of like a time travel something or other and all of that. I haven't had a chance to play the game yet. I really want to. Oh my gosh. And my life is just all screwy. Anyway, so you have the characters, Christine and Eric and Raoul. You actually play Raoul. And of course, you have to go and you have to save Christine from Eric. And you go through the opera house and you go down to the catacombs. This is the crazy part. Okay, you only have one life. Okay, Raoul has to find these six keys to unlock doors, and that's how you get closer to the catacombs. And with every key that regenerates his health. I was reading that and I'm just like, holy cow. Wow. Were our games really that difficult? I mean, like I said in the last one, I'm all for a challenge. Give me a challenge, but that's insane. Goodness gracious. Now I can see why this received a 70%. And I mean a 60%, I'm sorry. Because as it was talking about the way that you dodge things, it was saying like every step and action the player takes has to be carefully and thoroughly measured because there's only one life and the player's vitality is easily spent. See, that would mess me up. Because I'm a thinker. I am. My brother just goes through games. He's just sitting there and and I'm like, think of Sword in the Stone when they're squirrels. And Merlin is like, you gauge the distance careful. That's me. That's so me. Oh, I'm telling you. So it says the jumping function is the same as the firing. So if the player wants to shoot, he has to be still and up. See, this is what was confusing me and why I had to watch the gameplay. If he's not still and up, he will be jumping. Every action is individual. Either the player is jumping or ducking or firing. No combinations are allowed. Now, the other thing to understand is, again, this was a UK release and it was also released in Spain. It was released on a ZX Spectrum platform. Now, when I saw that the media type was like floppy disk and it also said cassette tape, that confused me. I was like, oh, so they really, because here in America, they will release soundtracks for the games. And I thought that that's what that was. They released cassette tapes for the soundtrack for this game. And that's not it. Okay, so I looked up ZX Spectrum and the game is on the cassette. That is how you play. Very interesting. I learned a lot about the ZX Spectrum. I had and so I learned a thing about gaming. Never hurts to learn stuff. And but I mean that would even at that though, when it's talking about how the functions work, that would confuse me. It reminds me a lot of uh the first which one was it? Friday the 13th. The first Friday the 13th game, those controls did not work at all. That is like, cause that's like disowned by the franchise because it was awful. It was absolutely terrible. Um, eh, a lot of the complaints was like the colors didn't make sense to the game, which they don't. It's like bright neon colors, and for for a horror game, you look at other horror games at the time, and it's like, what were you doing? And then they would have like just random character, like these random things just jump out at the characters that didn't make sense. There would be lag, which is like long pauses for, you would be banging your finger on the control and the character would just stand there and then finally move. Well, it was too late because because the bad guy would have, yeah. So one of the worst. I don't know if Angry Gamer, I'm sure he has. He's shown that one. It's awful. I'm sure there are other gamers that have shown that one. And it's just not a fun game. Not fun at all. I remember when my older cousin, he got it and he was all excited and he was sitting down and playing it and I think that's the first time I ever encountered gamer rage. I would think that this would be the same thing. You have one life and you have to try and get through this whole thing with the keys because also, of course, you have where, because I didn't mention this and I'm sorry, where Erik, the Phantom, has put all these little booby traps all throughout the opera house, such as like toxic vapor, dropping bombs, there's ghosts that jump out, and these these skulls come out at you. Yeah, all kinds of stuff. So, and you only have one life. And fun, not fun, excuse me. So yeah, I can see where the 60% would. I couldn't find where it talked about like the controls. Uh like I'm not familiar at all, I should say, with the ZX Spectrum and how the controls work on that. And I think it would have to be somebody actually working on it to actually say. So if you have played on a ZX Spectrum, please, by all means, flood the comment section and let us know. Um, and because yeah, I thought that the when it says cassette tape here, and because I've worked with floppy disks, I know what those are. And but when it says cassette tape, my first thought was music. And but when it says that the game is on there, and I was like, oh, well, time to do some research. And yeah, critics gave it 60%, but I can't find what they actually said. So, but just from the sound of it here, I can pretty much tell you that just from trying to play it, it can't be fun. No, but I'm just going by what is said here with the whole thing with trying to maneuver Raoul through and everything. If you played it, tell us what it was like. Because it didn't make it here in America. And but final thoughts on this. Yes, the uh the font is a lot like Phantom of the Opera, the Andrew Lloyd Webber, which was a success the year before, in 86, and then in 87 this was released. And of course, the other thing is on that opening page, the gentleman in the mask is it's just this. It's just him. And and I think that's a good homage to Gaston Leroux and everything. The gameplay itself, I could see where the 60% comes from. I wish I could find more information. If you played this, let us know what it was like. And tell us more about the Z Expect Us Americans anyway. Like I said, I can only go by what I read and everything because I mean, you know, I will put the gameplay in the description box. I highly recommend looking at it, and I will close up here.